Episode 10.
Regular Dad, episode 10.
I don't have a title for this episode because this is featuring you.
Yeah.
So next time, if you could enter your passcode a little bit more slowly so I can memorize it, that would be helpful.
Oh, it's my birthday.
Okay.
Now the internet's like, we know how to get into Jimmy's devices.
Yes,
I'll be all right.
Yeah, I'm sure.
My wife, who's much more privacy conscious, is probably going right now.
I have. You can look at anything that I don't.
Yeah.
I ain't got nothing.
So yeah,
anymore.
Episode 10. This is a topic that is important to Jimmy.
It's important to everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about raising kids in church, and the title is "The Problem with Raising Kids in Church."
Yeah.
Because
I'm one of those. I was raised in church.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too.
And my dad was not a Christian until like 86.
Yeah.
87, something like that. Now don't get mad at me, okay? People, okay. He was raised Catholic.
No one gets...
I can just,
I mean...
He was raised Catholic. Well, and now here's the thing. Now, we know he passed away. Mom's married to an Episcopalian now. And he's a prominent member of the church. Mm-hmm. He's a verger. He has a lot of time to be able to devote to the church and everything. Now, Dad went to the Episcopal church when I was a little kid.
Yeah.
Because they had fish fries like once a month or whatever it was.
I think I've seen that on their marquee when I drive by there. Yeah.
All I'm saying is that particular church that he goes to, and I'm assuming it's a denomination normalcy, normalized. I don't know that it's common, but it was beer laden fish fry. Now, especially as an adult, I'm like...
That doesn't fly in Southern Baptist circles.
No. But so it was definitely an Episcopal thing. And I'm like, well, I mean, we don't have to throw out the baby with the bathwater. I mean, that's all.
Yeah.
We could... so I still haven't been to a fish fry. So anyway, but yeah. Raised in church.
Yeah. So, this is weird. Weird role reversal.
Right.
Yeah.
You're also taller than me.
Yeah.
Well, that's actually true. In life too.
So just as an introduction, there's a lot to talk about here.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to talk about all of it.
Okay.
Right. There are plenty of roads we could go down to discuss this, and we're not going to be able to cover everything. We're going to do a couple of episodes on it. This is primarily from an evangelical Christian perspective, which is what you and I both are.
Yes.
Previous discussion aside.
Yeah.
I think you would probably consider yourself an evangelical.
Yes. And occasionally Episcopal.
Yeah.
If the fish fry is right.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Just saying.
He doesn't want to close the door on the fish fry.
I'm open. Sorry.
And I do hope that at some point in the future we can bring in other perspectives with regard to even raising children in other religious environments and even a-religious or non-religious environments.
Yeah.
Just as regular dads.
Sure thing.
Be a good discussion.
Yeah.
I love church leadership. This is not a knock on church leadership.
I like the breath hold there.
Okay.
When you said that. That was nice.
Yeah. This is not a knock.
Not a knock.
I have church hurt. I have church wounds. If some of that leaks out, I'm working on it.
Check out our series on the Divergent Sense podcast, Navigating Church Hurt.
There you go. It's a great one.
Shameless plug.
That's right. So I'm coming at this subject from a core belief that the Bible talks about transformation from the inside out.
Yes.
I think a lot of people look at religion as a behavioral structure, and that is where the problem for me lies. And so we're going to dig into that a little bit.
Yeah, it's a role that you're an authoritative role as opposed to something that you submit to.
Yeah, and it can even I don't want to.
No,
I don't want to steal my own thunder here. So, and then just as a sort of, I guess what would you call this in legal world, where they're like they have to share the connections they have to other investments or whatever. But the journey that I personally have been on has involved a lot of deconstructing parts of my faith.
Sure.
And that resulted from the things we're going to talk about. So again, if some of that stuff leaks out, it's not meant in a condemning or harsh manner. So what is the problem, Ben? The
problems are threefold, Jimmy.
I have a lot of friends who were raised in church.
Yeah.
Obviously, when you're raised in church, a lot of your friends are raised in church because that's your friend group.
Yep.
A significant portion of those friends have either completely deconstructed their faith and walked away, or are what I would say is like nominally acknowledging the existence of God and sort of, but not really, it's not a faith with any effect in their life.
Sure.
And so the question that led me to a question is, why is this happening? And so I would talk with those people like, hey, what's going on? And a lot of them, it came back to this idea.
Okay.
The idea that discipleship in the church, especially of young people, is not as easy as taking the Bible and building a structure of behavior and then calling the young people to follow said structure of behavior.
Okay.
Do you see?
Yes.
Right?
I think I'm tracking.
Yeah. Tell me if you're not, because I want to know.
That could be a risky premise.
Okay. So, and you add on another layer to this, and this is where the regular dad comes in. It's really easy for dads, especially, to farm out the spiritual formation of their children to a youth group at church.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
And check the box.
Yeah.
And I would even say, especially in the South, I'm not from the South, but in my observation, especially in the South, where a parent, often a dad, will say, I want my kids to have a level of spiritual awareness, spiritual formation, so I'm going to send them to church. Drops them off at the youth group.
Yeah.
Doesn't get involved, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that adds another layer. So you have this like structure that's built, right? Mm-hmm. And then you add on to that you have a parent, especially a father, who isn't engaging in the spiritual formation of their kids.
Yes.
So.
Yep.
And so those two things kind of dovetail, and what you end up with is kind of two possibilities. There are others, but these are the two I kind of want to talk about. You have a structure that, for a lot of kids, is going to result in them just saying, I'm out.
Yeah.
Right? Dad drops them off at church, or even if the parents are engaged, but they go to the youth group and there's this like structure that they're supposed to be following,
right?
That this is what they're supposed to look like. And I think it's really tempting when you build a structure like that to make it look, this is what a good kid looks like in the church.
Yeah.
And these kids over here are bad kids.
Absolutely.
To draw that line. And then you have
good kids or church kids.
Yeah, and so even something as subtly as like invite your friends to church. Why do we want to invite them to church? So they can be good kids.
Yeah.
Really? So that whole line, and
like normal kids.
When you draw that line in the sand, you're gonna have a significant portion of those kids who are gonna say, "I'm out."
Yeah.
I don't need this Jesus. I'm
right.
out. And then you're going to have another set of kids, and those are the kids that I was a part of, and they're the kids who fully buy in to the structure.
Okay.
They're like rule followers. Man, all I want is a set of rules to follow, and I'm in.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Now, I don't know how you were. I get a sense that maybe that wasn't quite your approach.
No.
So, if you fully buy into this structure, though, then it's like, that means that you believe that all these principles that I'm being taught out of the scriptures, if I just do those things, then all of the promises of the scriptures will come true for me. Like all of these things that the word says about, you'll have power to resist temptation, and you'll feel joy in the face of adversity, and all of these things.
Yeah.
You'll start to think, if I build this structure, if I follow this, then those things are true for me, because that's the definition of the Christian faith for you.
Yes. Because there's no way to get an education on the life living aspects of that come from faith. There's no way to give a detailed picture of what that looks like.
Right.
It's highlights.
Yeah.
Okay. It's a framework.
Yeah.
But there's very little time to dig into when it hits the fan.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it hits the fan for different people, different ways.
And for a lot of kids these days, it's constantly hitting the fan. It's constant. Rough. I mean, I was bullied growing up. I don't know if I would have survived in the current environment, because the bullying was so intense and difficult to deal with. If it had been 24/7, like social networking type stuff, I don't know, man, that would have been tough.
Yeah.
So what the result of this thing that happens is, later in life with these kids, they end up deconstructing. Mm-hmm. And it's not guaranteed. I didn't fully deconstruct my faith. I was able to, through a journey of like counseling and therapy, honestly, my wife, who has a vibrant faith in Jesus, was able to point some things out to me that were like, hey, that's not really a healthy way to look at things.
Right. There's healthy deconstruction and not destruction.
Right. Yeah.
But it's like a redefining, clarifying, shedding more light on, getting a little bit more granular.
Yeah.
So anyone that hears destruction or deconstruction as a bad thing, it's not inherently bad.
Right. No, it's not. And I want to make that point. I think that there is absolutely what Ben just said. There is a healthy deconstruction that I think we all have to go through to some degree, because when you're young in your faith, especially if you're raised in church, your brain is not ready to comprehend some of the things that you're hearing. And so as you grow in your faith, some of the beliefs that you may hold as you grow and you're in the Word and you're like, wow, that's not really a truth. You have to like go in there and like root that thing out, redefine it. I think that's the journey of faith for most people.
Yeah. Well,
I
mean, as a 19-year-old guy, raised in church, established my own relationship with the Lord. I realized, okay. And I was at a, church service, personal experience, personal encounter, everything. Okay. I now have my own relationship.
Yeah.
A little over a year later, I'm enrolled in Bible school. A little over 3 years later.
Yeah.
Okay. In that little bubble the whole time, a little over 3 years after that, I am married and divorced within that time slot.
That's a lot of life.
And here everything is good and wonderful and perfect. And because I went to Bible school and there was no class on how to deal with that. And so I had to but what's true about that? How does this apply?
Did you feel like you were progressing sort of through the levels of what would be considered a vibrant and good faith in Jesus and a walk with Jesus? It's like, I went to this and I did Bible school and I got married and all that. So were you feeling pretty affirmed by that?
Until the divorce, yes. Right. Because after that, it was like, well, that must not be real. Or it's not for me.
Something went wrong.
And that was a little lie that snuck in. There's a, you're familiar with Bob Hamp, the author, and he has an entire book series based on Think Differently, Live Differently, but that he has that phrase, what's the lie? And so it's a great little thing. And for me, the lie was, and you had kind of addressed it yourself, everything's going to be hunky-dory because, well, we were raised in church or we are Christian, so therefore everything is fine.
I'm checking the boxes, I'm following the rules.
Dude, that's not,
I think she'd be okay with me sharing this in general terms, but I know, so my wife, like, she I was her first like love.
Yeah.
Period. End of story. In our marriage, we've had a lot of struggles.
Sure.
And
you've been married 17 years.
She's admitted to me numerous times. She's like, I didn't think it was going to be this hard because I did all this, it's like, she's having to go through some deconstruction of those beliefs. Like, I did all the things.
Yeah.
So I should get the reward.
Yeah.
And that's
yeah.
Like that kind of thinking, I think, is bred by when you said it really well, a sort of snapshot discipleship that happens in a youth group, absent the engagement of a father. And I'm going to say especially a father.
Yeah.
Now, I have only sons, so I don't know what it's like to raise a daughter. So I would assume that that's very different.
I have a charge account at the local liquor store, so it's a lot easier because of that.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding, Mom. But no, it carries its own set of weirdness because your son you're trying to raise to be a better version of you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Your daughter you're raising to avoid the bad version of who you used to be.
Right. That is out there waiting for her.
Yeah. Everywhere.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
So.
So I wanted to say this, even if you don't bail on the entire faith because of the deconstruction, your effectiveness for the kingdom, which, again, this evangelical Christian perspective, but I believe, and I think the theology of the word speaks to this, that our main purpose on this planet is to glorify God. Mm-hmm. And the way that we do that is to become more Christ-like and more reflective of the Father and who he is. And you're going to reduce the effectiveness of that if you're just subscribing to a structure, a religious structure.
Yeah.
Right. So what do we do? So first thing, and you've heard me say this, but you got to point your kids back to Jesus. Mm-hmm. Like discipleship rule number 1, always point back to Jesus.
Right.
Like there are a few, Paul does this where he's like, look at my life. And I've done that sometimes with my son where I'm like, look at my life. But like my default mode is look at Jesus' life.
Yes.
Yeah. But not just that, not just point them back to Jesus, introduce them to Jesus. Because if the faith that we have is really what it claims to be, then it's a relationship with a living person, living personhood, living Godhead, whatever you want to say. But there's a living entity behind the word, behind all of that. And if that's true, then I, as a father, have a responsibility to be with him and understand him as best as I can.
Huge responsibility.
Be in relationship with him. And so if you go backwards from point them back at Jesus, well, to point at Jesus, then I need to know Jesus to do that. I can't just farm it out to a youth group.
No. That's, you can't offer your kids full nutrition on supplements alone.
Yeah.
Youth group is a supplement.
Yeah.
It's not the primary.
Yeah.
You've got to be the cook.
Absolutely.
And
only you as a father,
the chef.
Maybe this is assuming a lot, but only you as a father know your particular children. Mm-hmm. Again, an implication underlying that is, as a father, you should know your particular children. And I think sometimes as fathers, it's easy for us to disengage. Mm-hmm. I'm a pilot, right? So last year I worked 137 days. Most of those days were away from home, multiple days at a time. Yeah,
it's kind of hard to fly and still be here.
Right.
You do have some leave early in the morning, come back at night, but yeah.
But like, for the most part, my career takes me away from home.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of dads are like that. Mm-hmm. You've got guys who do sales.
Oh, yeah.
Guys
Road
who drive.
warriors.
I talked to a guy in the elevator on this last trip. He's driving a truck,
Yeah.
long haul. train engineers. I mean, there are multiple vocations that are sort of male heavy, guy heavy, that take you away from home.
Oh yeah, anything oil field related, especially if you're deep sea.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah,
boy, you're working
military.
If you're working offshore, you're not home a lot.
It doesn't absolve us of the responsibility to know our kids.
No.
Right. No. And so know Jesus, know your kids, and then point them back to Jesus. Another thing that you can do to sort of break this structure and sort of point them to a sort of lead them and disciple them in a resilient living faith is to be vulnerable.
Oh, that's huge.
Right? Like, I'm not going to hide my flaws from my kids. My kids know I struggle with anger.
Yep.
Right? Yep. My kids know that I'm working through that.
Yeah. My
kids know that I go to therapy. They know these things. We've normalized that in our home.
Yeah. Yeah. No, my kids, we've pulled back the curtain on a lot of that. It used to, that would just, gosh, the thought of letting my kids know what I'm struggling with, because I'm supposed to be the strong one.
Yeah.
I've mentioned this book before, but it begs repeating. The book is called Strong and Weak by Andy Crouch. It's a small book. And you think, oh, well,
I need to read it again.
Oh, geez. Yeah. And so it's now you could read it in a couple of hours, just cover to cover, but you need to spend a couple of weeks going through it and backwards and forwards and seeing how it all ties together, because there's so much, that it gives you, and it is probably, going to be mind bending. And it was for me. What do you mean you can't thrive without having vulnerability? Vulnerability is weakness. You can't inject weakness into your equation and come out. That's the only way.
Yeah.
So.
And I would suggest some of the books by Brene Brown.
Oh gosh,
have been really, really good in that regard.
Yeah.
In fact,
the gifts of imperfection.
All of her work is really good with regard to vulnerability and perfection.
Yeah.
Wholehearted living, all those things that she talks about have been really good for me to sort of.
Well, when the shorts for this come out, we'll tag Brene Brown, because the regular dad follows her on Instagram. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Oh, we do. Yeah. We definitely do. We're Brene Brown fans.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So just a couple more things here. So as they get older, increase this vulnerability. Show them that a life lived with Jesus is messy, that the progression is not linear. Let them see your flaws. When those flaws affect them, repent and ask for forgiveness. Yes, from your kids. Invite them in to that journey.
That's fantastic.
Like, all of that serves to pop out that structure and replace it with something that's living and breathing, relational.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
And just to reemphasize, don't farm out your kids' spiritual development to the church. That's not the role of your local fellowship. Youth pastors are awesome, but they can't take the place of you.
Yeah. Yeah, teachers shouldn't be parents, and youth pastors aren't parents.
No.
Okay.
No.
So we can't get by without them.
That's right. Yeah.
But
they play a vital role, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. But you can't get by on them. You know, you have to add more health in, to have a healthy environment.
Yep.
So.
Yep. All right. Well, next episode, we're going to get into some other practical advice that I have. Until then,
practical advice.
Practical advice.
Next time.
Next time.